All right. Welcome everyone to the Autism Society of Southern Arizona's Lunch and Learn for February. We are super excited this time of year. Everybody's talking about schools. And so we thought we'd give some assistance. I'm excited to have Scott here to tell us all about his program. Scott, you want to take it away?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Kate. And thanks for the invitation and the opportunity. We really appreciate it. So my name is Scott Evans. I'm the director of family and school engagement at a local nonprofit called Community Investment Corporation here in Tucson. And also in the chat is a colleague of mine, Dezora Ruiz. And so she will, along with Kate, sort of monitor any of the chat questions and keep me on my best behavior. She's also in office, so if and when I have technical difficulties, she can run down and save me. So anyhow, we really appreciate the opportunity and look forward to the conversation. So with that said, we'll dive into the agenda. So essentially today, we are here to talk to you all about the K-12 educational landscape in Arizona, kind of give you an overview of that, a little bit of guidance on how to find a school that fits, which is something all parents are kind of grappled with at some point as they're raising their children. And then we will sort of introduce you to a hub of resources that we've created to support parents called My Schools Tucson. So we'll give you a little tour of that. So again, if you have questions throughout, I may not see them in the chat, but Kate or Dezora will stop me and we can see if we can best answer them. And just so there's a little context, I mean, I am not an expert in autism or neurodivergent learners, but certainly learning the landscape of K-12 education here in Tucson, and glad to share what I do know. So much of what we talk to families about is applicable to all parents. And so we do have some information that might be slightly more helpful for this population or parents who are raising children with autism. So, but a lot of the information is similar and it sort of crosses families. So feel free to ask any questions that come up. So a little bit about our nonprofit. So Community Investment Corporation, also known as CIC. So we are an economic development nonprofit. We've been around since 1996. And essentially, it boils down to our mission is sort of access to the economy for under-resourced families. So that can look a lot of different ways. We have 3 different pillars within the organization. One is homeownership, one is entrepreneurship, and the one that Dezora and I live in is education. So homeownership, we issue mortgage credit certificates. We try to help families get into first-time homeowner buyers, get into homes for their families and afford that, make it more affordable. We have BIPOC small business loans for small business owners who may not be able to get loans from a traditional bank. We have 0% financing and revenue-based financing, which is not based on any sort of wealth, which may shut them out of opportunities. So Dezora and I live in the education department, and we have gone down the road of creating resources for families to help them understand what their school options are and help them navigate the educational landscape in Arizona. So before I sort of give you an introduction to that, a little bit about my why. So I'm a parent of 2 children, 3rd grade and kindergarten. Prior to my work in nonprofit, I've been here about 2 years. I was an educator, counselor in the schools in Tucson, and most recently worked in TSD, and then most recently the director of counseling at South Point prior to coming to CIC. So as an educator and a parent, I cared very much about wanting to set my kids up for success and find a school. So when it came time to find kindergarten for my daughter, I'm not from Arizona, not from Tucson, so a little bit in the dark about schools, and I didn't have that contextual knowledge, and found it extremely difficult to understand sort of what my options were, even know where the schools were, what the differences in the schools. Um, Pretty unfamiliar with the charter system. When I grew up, it was a different model of education. And so, I looked at my wife and said, oh my gosh, like we just purchased a home and we had a mortgage broker here to help us. We had a real estate agent. We had Zillow. We had all these sort of people on our side supporting us. And we go to find a school for our kid, and it is, we're kind of in the dark. So that's sort of why this was born, or one of the reasons. Just we felt like we could do a better job supporting parents in Southern Arizona. So it is called My Schools Tucson, but to be clear, it covers entire Pima County. So that's our boundary, that's our area. And I'll get into the school locator, but we created a school locator with that in mind. So it's Pima County schools, over 350 of them. So anyways, I'm going to show you a little video to give you a little snippet of what we will talk about, and be right back.
Life in the old Pueblo is a monsoon of family, work, and education. Finding the right school for your child is one of the most crucial decisions every family makes. But how do you make time to research such a big decision? How do you find the answers to your questions? And more importantly, how do you even know what questions to ask? What is open enrollment? What are the different school types? How does the universal ESA work? What are school letter grades? When do I need to apply? Where do I even start? Why isn't there a simple solution? There is. At CIC, we help answer all of your questions, and that's why we've created My Schools Tucson, a comprehensive set of tools to help families just like yours save time and discover all of your school options. This goldmine of bilingual resources provides unbiased and accessible information about K-12 schools in Pima County so that you can make informed decisions about your child's education. Our school locator serves as your personal education compass with over 350 school profiles. Explore district boundary maps, school letter grades, and enrollment deadlines. Filter and save lists of schools that meet your family's needs and compare them in one convenient spot. All schools for all families, all in one place, all for free. Our easy-to-use guidebook will walk you through the steps of exploring schools and provide you with essential questions for school tours, special education insights, how to fund a private education, and more. At CIC, we believe that education is a powerful instrument for reducing poverty, inequity, and inequality, because nobody should be on the outside looking in when it comes to their child's education. That's why we aim to ensure all families have access to the resources they need to make informed decisions. Explore, discover, and thrive with My Schools Tucson.
So hopefully that gave you a little sneak preview, but essentially we created My Schools Tucson. Number one, we found the educational landscape to be kind of complex and challenging to navigate. And it's drastically changed in the last 10 to 20 years. We also feel that families should absolutely have the opportunity to make an informed decision about their child's education, a crucial decision that we all make. And all children deserve access to schools that fit their needs, which is sometimes hard to find. And I can only imagine that if it's difficult for me to navigate, and someone who's in education, what does that experience look like for either the single mom or families who have kids that have greater needs and requirements and different that maybe all schools can't and don't serve them. So we also found that access to school information, while it might be out there, it's sometimes really hard to find and hard to navigate. So we just wanted to simplify that process for families as best we could. So one of the pieces that is really important to us, and I think is important to note, is the whole family engagement component. And that's really something that sort of has pulled us into this work and has kind of been the guiding force. And we do know that family engagement can have a real dramatic impact on student success. More so, and research has told us, more so than the teacher, the school, any tutoring that can be offered. It's one of those variables that that really is in the control of the parents, and it really is something that that can drastically impact student outcomes, both in the classroom and lifelong. So we firmly believe that the research is out there, and it indicates that the more involved parents are, you're increasing your odds for success. And we see school exploration as that sort of first step for parents to really engage in their K-12 experience. So we found that really helpful and important. And we also found that, if parents can do the homework and do the research and really understand what their options are, we feel like that's going to increase chances that their children will be at schools where their interests are met and their needs are met. And in turn, they're going to be more engaged in their learning process, and that will increase student outcomes as well. So for those two reasons, we really do believe the family engagement piece is a really important piece of this puzzle. And while it might seem overwhelming and daunting to sort of explore all these schools, I really want to encourage parents to really sort of take ownership and dive into it and not be afraid to ask questions, because it's really crucial to student success. So because family engagement was so important, we did, prior to doing this work here in the Tucson community, we conducted an Arizona parent survey because we wanted to know more about how Arizona parents engaged with their schools and engaged with school exploration process. So we conducted a parent survey in the fall of 2022, a little bit over 1,100 parents, to find out what did they know about the Arizona educational landscape. Were they aware of policies that were available or that are in Arizona that give them access to certain schools? How did they gain information on schools? How did they do their school exploration? What was important to them when they were choosing schools? So we surveyed over 1,100 parents, and not surprising, but what we found were that there were large disparities based on race and income, and families, and not just low-income families or minority families. We found lots of families struggled with accessing school information. Where did they go to find this information? There was sort of a lack of knowledge about open enrollment and tax credit programs and school letter grades and such. And really, families, we found, didn't quite know the rules of the game. And when you're dealing with enrollment deadlines and timelines that need to be met, the families that were sort of in the dark, we felt like were at a significant disadvantage in terms of getting their child into a school that might be the best place for them. So a little bit of example of sort of what we found in the data, and that really sort of pushed us down this road quicker because we were really uneasy with these results, was like 2.5 low-income families were 2.5 times more likely to feel that there were no resources available to them to access school information, and 4.5 times more likely to do no research before enrolling their child in school. So some of these stats really just jumped out. 15 times more likely to be only aware of one elementary school option. So we really wanted to sort of change this narrative and try to find ways to bring information to parents so that they were more engaged and they were more informed and they had access to more options if they so desired. So as unsettling as those were, we got interested in sort of why is this difficult, or why are parents not engaging in this process, or why is it really hard to find this information? And it sort of led us to the Arizona educational landscape and sort of looking at that. And and trying to come up with sort of reasons as to why these issues might exist. So I will say that, as I mentioned before, the educational landscape in Arizona has changed dramatically in the last 10 to 20 years. Most parents that are raising children now probably went through an educational system that looks no different, no similar to what it is now. So there's lots of different options now, whereas before I grew up in a model where you went to your assigned public school, or if you had money, you potentially went to the private school down the street. And that was essentially your only option. Granted, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so a lot different, but I grew up in California. But I dare say that most people, even if they've grown up in Arizona, probably grew up in a slightly different educational model. So it's new to parents. We're trying to figure it out. In 2024, a national survey, 59% of parents say that their children attend a different type of school than they did. So if I attended a public district school, my child might be attending a charter school, not something that I have really any knowledge about. So lots of parents are sort of navigating this new educational system for the first time. So that makes it extremely challenging. And then also where to find this information on schools can be difficult, and where to find unbiased information is difficult. So lots of different school options, hard to find unbiased information, and a system that most parents are semi-unfamiliar with. So to give you a little snapshot of what the educational landscape is in Arizona, about 73% of our students attend public district schools, so the vast majority. About 18% attend public charter schools, which is a pretty high number nationwide. About 7% attend private school, 2 or 3% are homeschooled or attend micro schools. So there are public schools. A lot of people don't know that charter schools are indeed public. They're free. They're public schools. And the charter market in Arizona is greater than any other state in the country. So 24% of our public schools are charter schools. So we are, the state of Arizona has more school options than any other state, which on one hand is nice. You have options, you have choices, but if you don't know what they are and don't know how to access them, it becomes sort of an unequal or unfair system. So that is the Arizona education landscape and where our kids are attending. We do lead the nation in sort of options. And so there are a lot of reasons behind that. One of the main reasons is that we have open enrollment in our district schools. Okay, so that's one of the big driving forces. And we'll get into sort of what open enrollment is and a little bit of the finer detail. But basically, your child can go to any public school in the state of Arizona, regardless of where you live, which is different than when I was raised, right? You are assigned a neighborhood school, and that's where you went, and you couldn't go outside of those boundaries. Those boundaries now, they still exist, but you are allowed to apply outside of those. As I said, we have a lot of charter schools in the state of Arizona, so a lot of different school types to filter through. And then one of the big pieces here in Arizona are the private school funding policies and options. So we'll dive into that a little bit later in the presentation as well. So there are opportunities for families to afford private education that didn't exist a few years ago, and certainly didn't exist 10 or 20 years ago. So, and then when you think about the types of schools that live within one district, I mean, you have magnet schools, you have different teaching styles and teaching philosophies and a different curriculum, so you have STEM schools, you have classical schools, Montessori schools, Waldorf schools. So there are so many variations of education that it can become a little bit daunting and difficult to sort of find what fits. So in Pima County, we have a variety of schools and a variety of schools for children with autism. So finding the one that fits, sometimes it feels a little bit unfair that we as parents are sort of trial and error with this, but you do your homework, you do the best you can to make an informed decision and explore your options. So there's public district schools. We know what those are. It's TUSD, Amphi. There are charter schools like Lehman and Basis and Legacy. There are virtual options. TUSD has virtual option. Every district has a virtual option these days. And then there are outside outfitters, ASU Digital Prep, things like that. So there's virtual option and there's hybrid schools, so that are kind of a combination of either or. There are private schools, certainly like Sal Point, the Gregory School, so there are private schools, and then there's homeschools and micro schools, which are another form that has sort of grown more so during the pandemic, but have existed for quite some time as well. So within those types of schools, there are also specialized schools for children with autism. So there's specialized schools for neurodivergent learners that exist within the district schools. There are specialized programs at certain schools. When you think of charter schools, Lehman and Basis, there are those charter schools, but there's also charter schools, or one in particular that I know of, Arizona Autism Charter School, which is brand new to Tucson. I think they opened last year. And that is a school, that's a charter school. That's a free public school that is specifically designed for children with autism or neurodivergent learners. So there are private schools that, while Sal Point and the Gregory School aren't specifically designed for children with autism, it may be a welcome place in a nice school, but there are private schools that are specifically designed for children with those needs. So the Abbey School, Pathways School, Renaissance Academy. So they do exist, but it takes a little bit of diving to find out what they're about, how they educate children, and if that would be a good fit for you. So in order to try to make sense of this landscape, we created a step-by-step parent guidebook called Exploring Schools in Tucson, which sort of walk through the 5 important steps. One would be determine family needs, understanding the different school types. Then you research your schools. Then you take tours and you ask questions and you get information, and then it becomes time to evaluate and apply. So we created a little guidebook for families who needed to do this, either doing it for the first time or they're diving back in and trying to find a school that they can either transfer to, or maybe they're transitioning from elementary to middle school. So we'll walk you through some of the steps that are essential and important. First step would be identifying your child and family's needs. So you as parents know your children better than anybody. So the first thing to do is to sit down and really think about what are the important factors, what are we looking for, what are our needs, what would make this system work for us. For some people, it's location, and quite honest, that's probably the driving force behind a lot of parent decisions is, where is the school located? Is it convenient for drop-off pickup? Is it near work? Is it near my home? Is it near Nana and Tata's? Location is the driving force for most of us, but maybe public transportation, maybe does the school district offer transportation? That might be an important factor. What extracurricular programs are available? So there are lots of different factors. For parents with children with autism, I can imagine that the special needs, is the school going to be able to accommodate and sort of meet the needs of you and your child and your family? So those become probably even more important than some of these other factors. But all of them need to be sort of discussed and explored. And, this is really where it starts. You need to identify what you're looking for before you go looking. So in terms of neurodivergent learners and sort of the needs and the desired levels of school support, so these are some of the questions that you might want to ask yourself. So what type of intervention does your child need? Will your child need one-on-one paraprofessional assistance or an aide during the school day? Will you need daily or weekly access to therapists, so occupational therapists, PT, or speech? And does the school offer those? And what educational accommodations have been helpful for you all in the past? So in different settings, what has been helpful and what are you sort of hoping that that school would be able to meet you with? So once you've determined your family's needs, step 2 would be really understanding what the school options are. As we talked earlier, there's public, there's charter, there's private, there's homeschool. So really diving into what those different options look like and sort of what the differences are. So, public school district, obviously, they have resources. They are required to provide free and appropriate education. But the programs can vary from school to school and from district to district. So really asking questions when you get into the public school system or when you're exploring about what does that look like for children with similar needs as mine. There's charter. As I said, a lot of people don't understand that charter schools are actually public schools. So they also are required by law to provide free and appropriate education. And they are free, so they do not cost families money. A lot of families think, well, I can't go to a charter school because I can't afford it, but charter schools are absolutely free. And then private schools, obviously, you have the cost of tuition. Accommodations and support will really vary greatly from school to school. And so that's probably the biggest difference is they are not required to provide special education in the same way that public schools are. And then we have homeschools and virtual learning options, which far more flexible if you need flexibility in your schedule. The homeschool, you have a lot of parent oversight into the curriculum that's offered. And then micro schools are sort of an offshoot of homeschooling that grew during the pandemic. And essentially that is if I'm homeschooling my child and wanted to do so for a smaller group of children, I could open my doors or find a place to start a micro school. And they're really sort of pod type learning where it's a real small group of children and either taught by a parent or they hire a teacher to come in and oversee that process. When we think about the different schools, obviously they are not all the same and they're not going to be able to accommodate in a similar fashion. So some of charter schools offer free and reduced lunch, some offer transportation and others do not. Access to paraprofessionals and one-on-one aides may not be available in a private school setting, or it may. It just depends on the school. So the type of curriculum that is offered and whether they have support staff on site to assist. So with all these school types, now we're into, okay, what is the best way to research these schools? So word of mouth is probably the most commonly used form. We as humans like to know what others think and what those experiences are. And it can be a very helpful tool during this process. And we certainly would encourage it, but I'll also, keep in mind that every child is unique, every school is unique, and every experience is going to be different. So we really encourage other forms of exploration. Obviously, we would encourage using My Schools Tucson to help you in that process. Do your research online, go to the school sites, go to our site, go to the Arizona Department of Ed, and really dive into to what's going on at those specific schools. And then lastly, probably the most important piece of this puzzle would be visiting schools and asking the right questions. So that's how most people do their research on schools. So as you're getting to know sort of what these schools are, it's good to know what some of these policies are. And we mentioned open enrollment. So that and I want to explain what open enrollment is for those who don't know what that is. Essentially, the public district schools, every school has a boundary, and it's every home is assigned a school based on the home address. So you live in this neighborhood, you are assigned a neighborhood traditional district school, elementary, middle, and high school that your child can attend. So that still exists, but you are now, with the open enrollment policy, Arizona state law says that you can apply to any public school regardless of the zip code that you live. So you can, this can be inter-district or intra-district. So you can live in the TUSD district and you can attend an Amphi or a Vail or a Catalina Foothills district school. So you can go cross district, or if you live in TUSD and your boundary elementary school is Lineweaver, but you want to attend a different school, you can do so. And it's still a TUSD school. You can do so and you can apply to a different school that is not your home school. So open enrollment basically opens access to all district schools. Now, the schools have to admit you if there is space in their school, so they can't discriminate based on anything. And if there's space in their school, then they are required to admit students. So there's no guarantee if you're applying to a district school that is competitive and have lots of people wanting to attend, then number one, you want to make sure that you get your application in on time and be aware of what those deadlines are, because you aren't guaranteed admission if you do not live within that boundary. You need to apply. So fortunately, most of the district schools are not going to have wait lists or be full, but there are a handful of schools that if you have missed that deadline, you may not be getting in, or you may be put on a wait list. So the other important piece here is the timelines and deadlines that these things happen. And so when do you start exploring, or when do you need to get your applications in? And typically I tell families the fall, a year before you're going to enroll or attend, is a good time to start. So certainly before is not a bad idea, but a year in advance is a pretty good window. It gives you the opportunity to do your homework, do your research, take some tours, and really make an informed decision. So when does that start? One of the issues with Arizona is there's not a lot of consistency. So the districts set their open and close dates, and they're not all the same. And so do the charter schools, and so do the private schools. So you have a lot of moving pieces just in terms of the timelines and deadlines to keep track of. So late fall, early December is sort of the earliest I've seen schools have their open enrollment window open. And that's usually sort of late November, early December. And in many cases, that window stays open until mid-January. You can apply. Doesn't matter when you apply during that window, as long as you get your information in before their deadline, then you will be considered just like every other child. So the issue becomes when those windows become shorter. So schools get to dictate how long that window is open. And if a school says, we're a charter school and it's opened on December 1st and you have 1 week to get your information into us, then that could be extremely limiting. But it's up to the school to determine those open enrollment windows. And I really haven't seen any earlier than November. So, but I would say if you aren't paying attention late fall, early winter, you may miss some opportunities, a few opportunities. So that's sort of the date to be most mindful of. When we're researching schools, in the state of Arizona, we have school letter grades that are issued for every public school. So charter school and district schools all receive a letter grade of A through F from the state of Arizona, and it's essentially a performance or an accountability letter grade. It's a way that parents can sort of use that as a yardstick, as a measuring point. They can kind of compare and see, how is this school doing? This school is an A school, this school is a D school. The issue with this is that, number one, it doesn't capture the entire culture and the community of the school. It really is a snapshot of basically proficiency, students performing on standardized tests, and growth of that school. Did it make gains or see a decrease in test scores from one year to the next? So there are other factors, but essentially it's proficiency and growth that are the driving forces behind those letter grades. And on one hand, it simplifies things for parents, and it can be a really useful tool, but we would just urge families to consider not only the letter grade, but other factors as well. And then the last piece about sort of when you're researching schools is an important piece if you're considering a private school, or if you're not considering a private school because you feel like it's unaffordable. It's good to get familiar with what the funding options are in Arizona. So in the state of Arizona, there are primarily two different ways to fund a private education. And one is via the ESA, or the Universal Voucher, which I think about a year ago, they switched and made it universal, which means every family in the state of Arizona can receive the voucher. And it's roughly about $7,000, depending on the grade level of your child, $7,000 and more if your child has special needs. So obviously for an elementary school, $7,000 could cover the cost of tuition. It's not going to cover the cost of tuition for many of the high schools. I know it wouldn't for South Point, and most every high school is going to be more than that, but every family qualifies for that. It doesn't matter. There are no qualifications based on where you live, based on how much you make, your household income. It's a universal voucher, which means it's available to all. So that's one option, or one way to make private school more affordable. The other is Arizona tax credit programs, which are another way that families can offset the cost of tuition or even completely cover the cost. So we have information on our website about both of those programs, but both are viable options if you are considering a private education or homeschooling. You can tap into the ESA voucher as well. And so the voucher, the funding of private school, the school letter grades, and open enrollment, those were three topics, really important topics for Arizona families that we found when we did our Arizona parent survey. We found real discrepancies between what families knew or understood about those policies and programs. So to me, those are three sort of essential pieces of information that you would want to become familiar with. And it was an area where we found some families knew a lot about it, very familiar with it, and some families didn't know anything about it or had heard of it, but didn't know how to navigate that system. So those are the three areas that I would say, at the very least, to try to get up to speed with what those policies and programs are, to see if it might benefit you. So step 4 in this process, and I would say this is perhaps the most important, and certainly if you have a child with different needs, then you're not sure that the school is going to be able to accommodate or be the right fit. The most important thing that you as a family can do is take a school visit and get on that campus and ask questions, because that's really going to be the way that you can best see whether this is going to be a place for your child or not. So, why we would send our children to school without visiting is really beyond me, other than I know it takes a lot of time and it's not logistically possible for lots of families. But we would never rent a house or buy a car, or probably buy shoes before Amazon, without trying them on or walking into them and doing some homework. So many of our families drop their kids off at school without really knowing what's behind the walls and without asking questions. So my guess is this group on this call probably does more homework and more school visits than the general population, I would imagine. I'm assuming it's an assumption, but I would imagine that we have on this call, we have parents that are involved, are engaged, and really understand the need to get in there and see and ask questions. So on our site, we've created a list of questions for parents to ask schools if they're uncertain or if they sort of lack the confidence about, hey, I don't quite know what to ask if I go on a tour, or when I go on a tour, when I speak to somebody at the school, I'm not exactly sure what I should be inquiring about. So we have questions there for all different school types, charter, private, district schools, different grade levels, and obviously some questions for neurodivergent learners. Again, not my sort of expertise, but I think it's important to sort of familiarize yourself of, what are those frequently asked questions? How do I really gain better knowledge about whether this is going to be the right fit? But really diving in and asking them, what is the classroom setting like? Is it a self-contained classroom with one-on-one aides? Does that exist on this campus? What are the strategies behind managing behavior and bullying and discipline? How often will my child have access to counselors and psychologists and those kind of things? So there are a few questions here, and then if you go to My Schools Tucson, you can see a list of more. And then once you're on campus, I mean, outside of asking the questions, I think, what are we looking for? Obviously, do you see your child there? What are the other things that you are observing? Do teachers have mechanisms in place to help with executive functioning, the planning, the organizing? Do they use checklists? Do they use reward systems, calendars, planners? So what are you seeing when you're on that campus? And how does it feel, right? So again, the questions are important, but you're going to have to trust your instinct and your gut at some point. And the closer view you have of that system, I think the clearer it becomes. So, and if you've visited and you've taken your tours, and now it's time to sort of decide, evaluate, and apply. So obviously, as I mentioned before, with the open enrollment windows varying from school to school and district to district, that's why it's important, A, to start in the fall, and B, to be aware of, if that's the school that I would like to enroll or apply to, do I know when I need to get my information in? Because if you are not aware of that, there's a good chance that you could have missed that window. And that would be, that'd be a terrible reason not to have access to that school if you so desired. So really pay attention to the enrollment deadlines, talk it over as a family, make your pros and cons list, and really sit down and try to sort through the information. So as you are applying, the things to ask yourself: is this a place where students are educated or respected and accepted for who they are? Is this school a place where students are taught based on their individual needs, or is it a prescribed curriculum? And, please, remember that and I put this in quotes, the right school is the one that is open, that invites you to explore without any hesitation. You should feel comfortable and accepted and welcome to come on that campus, ask questions, and inquire. And if you don't get that sense, I would argue that, maybe it's time to look in a different direction, because schools should be welcoming you and your questions. So I don't know if there are questions in the chat, Kate or Dezora. Are there any questions that have popped up as I've been rambling?
No.
Okay. So we will sort of close with a little demonstration of sort of the My School Tucson resources that we've created. So we'll talk to you about and show you the locator that parents can use, the sort of website and the resource hub, and then the Exploring Schools in Tucson guidebook, which we essentially walked through, but that guidebook has lots of information and the ability for families to click on a link and it'll take you to a deeper dive of information. So if you so desire.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. So, so to start, My Schools Tucson is a website. This is the landing page. If you just want to sort of explore your schools, you can get to the map part, but there's a lot more information behind here that I wanted to sort of bring to your attention. So there are we have a blog with some different articles that parents may want to read. There is, let me get rid of this. Down here, we have an events and important dates reminder. So these are when we become aware of either school open houses or enrollment events, opportunities for parents to get on campuses and see what those schools are like. We will post them here. So you can kind of see a calendar of upcoming events in the area. So there's that. If you're interested in more of our survey results, you can certainly take a deeper dive there. And then this is the guidebook that I will take you to in just a second. So here's information on all of the school types. I know we talked about lots of different types, but here is where you can go to read a little bit more about them. You know, Scott talked about what micro schools were, and I still don't quite know what they are. You can find information out there. Want to get a better understanding of what public charter schools are. There's information here on the different school types. There's also, and this is probably one of the more popular spots for families, is a lot of families don't even know what their assigned neighborhood school is, and this is where you can do that. You can just put in your address and it'll tell you what your elementary, your middle, and your high school are based on your home address.
There is a question in the chat.
Yeah.
It says, any experience of private schools and kids who need more one-on-one help? We are considering Tanque Verde Lutheran for preschool / kinder.
Yeah, so I mean, I really don't know, other than what I would do at this point is I would go right to their website and see what information that you can gather about, do they have do they specialize in children with special needs? What does that program look like? And then I would inquire with that school and say, this is what we're looking for. These are what our needs are. And can you walk me through what this looks like for kids with similar needs? And really, I would get on that campus as soon as you can and start asking some of those questions. But you know, I do know that there are private schools, and then there are private schools that specialize in neurodivergent learners. And so those are two very different entities. While in a private school that doesn't specialize in neurodivergent learners may be a great fit for lots of kids. And it may be a great fit for your child. It just depends on sort of the level of care and support that, you know, are they high functioning? Can they, you know, can they sort of navigate with limited support? or are they going to need more direct support? So asking those questions to those school administrators and those school leaders to say, this is what our needs are. What does this look like at your school is really the way that you're going to get to the bottom of that answer. But I certainly would explore the specialized private schools, the Arizona Autism Charter School, free. That is all they do, is they are 100% committed to educating children with those needs. So I would explore both options and really think about which one feels best to you. You know, one of the considerations that families often have is what grade levels do they teach? So, you know, some parents think, oh, you know what, I want to find a K-8 school or a K-12 school because my child struggles with transition and we don't want to move from elementary to middle to high school. We want one setting, one environment. And so that sometimes dictates the type of school that parents are looking for. Any other questions from that? So then I just want to point you to the resources and sort of where you can take some deeper dives into this information. Here you can find FAQs, not all autism specific, but sort of general FAQs. What are the mistakes to avoid when choosing a school? You know, how are Arizona public schools graded and rated? So if you're really interested in that, you can click there, and then you can do a little bit of your own homework and dive deeper down that road. There's a special education resource page, 10 things to look for in a school of special needs, and then school options for children with autism and special needs. So if you click that, that will take you to our locator. This is our school locator. Essentially 350 plus Pima County schools, all school types. That list right here is the list of schools that are really specific towards neurodivergent learners or children with autism. So this list here, 11 schools. There might be some more that we are unaware of. I'm not so sure that we have every single one, but these are 11 schools that very much specialize in that kind of education. And so this would be maybe a starting off point. Obviously, district schools, charter schools, they all are required to provide resources and services and support for students. So you don't see them on here. There's a couple district schools on, but we haven't included all of the district schools, although they might very well provide you with the resources that you need. So these are really the ones that are specifically designed and teach towards children with those needs. And if you weren't interested in that list and you wanted to explore all 359, you can do so here. This is essentially sort of Zillow for Pima County K-12 schools. If you're familiar with Zillow, you can click on the Abbey School. You can see where it is. You can click on the profile. And then there are links to take you directly to their website, directly to the district website, their enrollment link. You can see the basic overview here. Average class size at the Abbey School is 8 students, so very, very small class size, and student to teacher ratio. There's enrollment information. If you want to watch a virtual tour, you can click there. So it's really trying to pull all their information and bring it to parents' fingertips to save them a little bit of time. You can see what kind of programs they offer and student support. So really meant to sort of get you to their information quickly, and then direct you to the schools. Really, I would encourage families to use this to discover and learn, and then go straight to their website if that's of interest to you and see what you can find there. So the nice thing is you can filter if you're interested in finding all charter schools, that offer kindergarten, that have a letter grade of A or B, you can start to filter your searches that way. If you're looking for a dual language program, you can click there. And those are the dual language programs that exist in Tucson. So really nice filtering ability. The other thing you can do that's really nice, especially if there's multiple people engaged in the exploration process, like, so I had my wife and I were both looking for schools. I was constantly sending her text messages or emails and, hey, check out this school, or these are 3 schools that I'm interested in. So the nice part about this is you can save your schools very easily. So, and then you can email that saved list to yourself or to a partner or spouse or someone who's helping you in the process. And they will get just this list sent to them. They can click on the link and it'll take them right to this page. So that's a really nice feature about the site that makes it a little bit easier and a little bit simpler for parents. So, yeah, if you want to get back to the landing page, you get away from the locator. This takes you back to the landing page. And from here, back to the locator, you just click Explore Schools. And then lastly, I'll just show you the guidebook in its true form. I mean, we walked you through the 5 steps, but if you wanted to either download this or access this or share this with somebody, this is essentially the book. And we walk through the 5 steps to exploring, questions to ask as a family. These QR codes are clickable. So you can click there and it'll take you to more information. Oh, well, not taking me there. No, it thinks that I'm probably spamming. So it'll take you to deeper dives of this information. So the guidebook is, let's see now, of course, how do I get back? So the different school types, again, QR code will take you to more information on that. My school's Tucson locator. If you're interested in letter grades and rankings, it'll take you to information on that. Key questions to ask on school tours, site visits, important deadlines, timelines, and funding a private school, and then other sort of quick links to get you the information that you're looking for. So that is, of course, I'm probably going to shut this down in the wrong way, but bear with me as I get back to the PowerPoint. Zora or Kate, you got any, oh, here we go. There we go. So to wrap things up, a little checklist for what I think consider would be sort of the main parent checklist or main points. Number 1, start exploring schools early as you can. Get familiar with all your options, do your research on the different school types, take a visit and ask questions. Again, probably the most important tool in your toolbox is that piece right there. And then at the end of the day, you are the parent, you know your child. You're going to have to trust your instinct and go with your gut sometimes. And if you've done your homework, I think you've put yourself in a pretty good position to make the best possible decision that you can at that given time. One of the things that we get a little bit obsessed with is we try to find the perfect school. There probably is no real such thing as the perfect school. You're going to have schools that have lots of pros. Most likely every school will have a con of some sort. So don't get obsessed or determined to find the school that is perfect, because I think you're gonna find yourselves frustrated with that process. But there are plenty of options in Arizona, plenty of options in Pima County, plenty of different types of schools. So I do believe that while you're in a unique position and children with autism pose sort of challenges or require a little bit more sort of hands-on observation when making this decision, if you're doing those things and you're doing your research and you're taking tours and you're asking questions, you're going to be in the best position to make an informed decision. So if it feels overwhelming, it is, I can tell you. But you just have to chip away, and little by little, I do believe you will get to a better place with this. So we have put together a handout with sort of ability for you to access some of this information quickly. We'll have the PDF. Zora can plop that in the chat, and we'll send any of this stuff to Kate if need be, or you can reach back out to me and shoot me an email at this email here, scott@cictucson.org, and I would be glad to either have a further conversation with you, offer any guidance that I may be able to offer, show you around the website if it's confusing or you forgot how to navigate that piece of it. I'd be glad to walk you through any of that. And then we also put together a worksheet, sort of like a parent checklist or worksheet to sort of remind you of the 5 steps. So that's also available in PDF. This presentation will be available, so you can always come back to this helpful resources and websites page if you want to access any of these helpful sites. Of course, the most helpful site right there is the Autism Society of Southern Arizona, by far, hands down. So that's the resources that we have available. I really do encourage you to sort of utilize either the guidebook or the landing page or the school locator to help you on your journey here. Are there any questions that have popped up?
Nope, I think that you've answered them all. Thank you so much. This was so helpful and really like breaking down the most confusing topic as a parent. It's so challenging to find schools. This really helps a lot. So I'm super excited to be able to offer this to people and connect them to everything. Thank you so very much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And by all means, if people have questions that they didn't ask or that pop up, shoot us an email and we will see how we can best support you.
I'll be sending out a follow-up email too with the links to get to your page and Scott's email address and everything too. So you guys need it. And the handout that she just put in the chat.
There are no bad questions, that I can tell you, because I've asked all of them so far. So yeah, Kate, we really appreciate the opportunity to share, and hope that your followers find some value in this and maybe have a little bit more understanding, or at least know where to go if they need some more help.
So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone
Kate.
for joining, and look out for that email. I'll be sending follow-up.